All right, good evening. I'm Mike Rogers, Maryland State Delegate from Legislative District 32 in Anne Arundel County, coming to you live from the American Legion Post 276 in Severn, Maryland. I'm honored to moderate the statewide Veterans Symposium this evening. The goal is to educate and inform the audience of the many services, benefits, and opportunities for the 385,000 plus veterans living in Maryland. I want to thank my colleagues from the Maryland General Assembly Veterans, Women's, Black, and Latino caucuses on Zoom, TV, and Facebook Live for their support of this event and our veterans across the state. We have four outstanding panelists this evening who will provide some excellent information. Before I turn to our panelists, I want to call your attention to a couple administrative items. First, the symposium is being recorded. Our panelists, you can ask it on the Facebook Live feed. Again, we are recording this event. We will address questions after the final panelists. Before we get started, I want to wish the Marine Corps a happy 245th birthday. Hoorah! With that, I'd like to introduce our very own Maryland Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Honorable George Owens.
Thank you, Colonel, very much. You failed to tell them not only are you District 32 delegate, but you're also a retired United States Army Colonel. And for that, I want to thank you for the many years of your service. You know, tomorrow is a very special day, and it becomes trite after a while to keep hearing thank you for your service and all that. And does it carry any real meaning? I mean, does it really carry the meaning? You hear it so often. You look at the stores, they're going to discount you for this, discount you for that, and then tomorrow's over. And then for the next 364 days, what do you hear? Not a whole lot. That's why a band of brothers, as the saying goes, is so vitally important. For the caucuses in Annapolis in the General Assembly, the Veterans Caucus is as strong as it's ever been. As you know, well, Mike and I arrived there back in the 80s, and we had a few hanging around, old timers, but today the caucus is viable, it's energetic, and it produces some very important pieces of legislation that come out of the General Assembly. And I want to thank you all of you who have worn a uniform and that are in the position to do exactly that, to bring forth issues affecting us veterans to the forefront. You know, you look back and you got to think of what the old Ben Franklin wanted to do. He wanted to make the national bird not the eagle but a turkey. So if that had happened, I don't know. I don't know how many of us would be welcoming the comments that come our way. So enjoy the sales tomorrow, but don't forget what it's all about. It's all about, and again, it's a trite or time-worn salutation, but thank you for your service carries meaning for those of us that did serve, did go away, did fortunately come back for Memorial Day is set aside for a totally different time. But again, Mike, thank you very much on behalf of the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you for putting on this symposium. Thank you and your team for those that haven't been out to the World War II Memorial for what you did out there last week. And with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Next, I'd like to introduce the chair of the Veterans Caucus, the Honorable Delegate C.T. Wilson.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, George, for those amazing comments. I will be brief. Mike, again, you're doing an amazing job. And from all the veterans and Veterans Caucus, thank you very much for the work that you're doing for our veterans. Colonel, thank you for the time that you served, as well as everybody else on this call. Thank you for your service. I just want to say that, while these are very troubling times, both with the pandemic and the hyper partisanship, one thing that we'll never forget, and those of us that served will never forget, is that we are all Americans. First and foremost, and to our last, we are all Americans. Many of my friends, many of your friends, many of our friends have died for this country and have come back and left part of themselves on that battlefield for this country and for these rights. So I'm very grateful to be a part of this. I don't want to take too much more time. George spoke a lot, so I'm going to cut off, give him some of my time and say thank you guys very much for participating. And I'll be listening to see if there's anything we can do. It's going to be an abbreviated session, very difficult to get legislation through this year. But if there's anything that we need to do, let us know so we can get it done. Thank you very much.
CT, thank you for those words and those comments. Really appreciate all you do in your leadership of the Veterans Caucus. So next, I'd like to introduce, my colleague, the chair of the Women's Caucus, the Honorable Delegate Carol Krim.
Um, can you hear me? Because your picture disappeared on my screen. So can you hear me?
We can definitely hear you.
Okay, so thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, Mike, for organizing this. And I will say thank you for your service, even though what the secretary said, I really mean it. I had some people in my family have served in the military, and I look back to my father's service during World War II, and I really, really believe that we need to thank our veterans and our service members now for their service. So, but I do want to talk a little bit about the Women's Caucus. The Women's Caucus is 76 women strong and 8 male associate members, including our delegate, Mike Rogers. And we have every March for the past couple years, at the direction of Delegate Edith Patterson, who is on this call. She's our good delegate from Southern Maryland, and Speaker Pro Tem Cherie Sample Hughes. We have Women's Veterans Day, and it has been very successful. The first year we had about 40 participants, and last year we had 80 participants. And we think that it will grow again this year, although we won't be able to have an in-person event, but the caucus is dedicated and committed to having this event. So we will be having a virtual event. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Delegate Patterson is on the call today. And if anybody has any questions about Women's Veterans Day, please direct them to her. She's the expert. So thank you, Mike, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Carol. Next, I'd like to introduce the chair of the Latino Caucus, the Honorable Delegate David Fraser Hidalgo.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, very, very much for organizing this and for allowing us to participate in our own way. Good evening, everyone. My name is David Fraser Hidalgo. I serve as a delegate in Montgomery County's 15th district. And I am the chair of the Legislative Latino Caucus since 2019. It's my honor to be with all of you tonight, along with the Women's Caucus and the Black Caucus and the Veterans Caucus. I'd like to thank them for this evening's symposium. On behalf of the Latino Caucus, we are proud to support and pay tribute to the bravery and the sacrifices that our Marylanders and veterans have made. The Latino Caucus was created to serve a forum of members of the Maryland House of Delegates and the Senate to identify and confront key issues affecting Latinos throughout the state. Through legislation, activism, and outreach, the community engagement, the Latino Caucus aims to be a strong voice for Latinos and help improve the lives of all Marylanders. We appreciate the opportunity to work with our fellow caucuses. And as time goes by, we find ourselves working together more and more. Thank you, Delegate Rogers, again for your leadership, and thank you for everything that you've done in your service and organizing this event. And I look forward to the opportunity to be here. Thank you again very much. I look forward to learning about learning tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll try that again. I was just saying I really truly appreciate the remarks of our caucus chairs. And it's interesting that, we say that this is a statewide effort, but we have caucus chairs representing Charles County, Frederick County, Montgomery County, and the chair of the Black Caucus, who should be joining us a little bit later, Prince George's County. And of course, I'm from Anne Arundel County. So really appreciate those remarks from our caucus chairs. And so now we're going to go to our first panelist this evening, which is Ms. Dana Burrow. So Dana Burrow was, born and raised in Annapolis. Ms. Burrow began her service to the Maryland Department of Veteran Affairs as the Director of Outreach and Advocacy in October 2013. In her role, she oversees communications for the department. Ms. Burrow is responsible for designing all written publications, for managing content for the department's website, for managing social media and email communications, and for representing the department in community events, for staffing, resource tables, and for providing briefings in the community on veterans events and services in Maryland. I had the opportunity to see firsthand her in the community this past Saturday in Annapolis. She also serves on the secretary's designee to the Governor's Convention on Suicide Prevention and the state's Interagency Council on Homelessness. She also sits on the Balance of State Continuum of Care Board, and she serves in the direction of the Maryland Veteran Service Animal Program and the Veteran Services Specialist Program. She's earned degrees from both Towson University and the University of Delaware. And so with this, I'll turn it over to Ms. Dana Burrow.
Thank you, Delegate Rogers. I'm trying to share my screen and it's saying that it is disabled. I'm not able to share my screen, so perhaps the host can share it for me.
Try again, Dana, you should be able to do it.
Okay. Okay, I think we're good. So thank you very much, Delegate Rogers, for the opportunity to be here with all of you this evening on what is Veterans Day Eve. Perhaps unlike any Veterans Day Eve that I know I've ever experienced. But thank you very much. And I always like to preface when I'm briefing to organizations about the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs that while I do my very best to empathize and consider myself in the shoes of those who have served, I indeed have not served myself. However, I did serve as an active duty military spouse for approximately 12 years. And if you look at my background on my screen this evening, you'll see the beach of Omaha in Normandy, France, which is the beach that my grandfather landed on D-Day. And it's so important in the job that I do to be mindful, not just of our returning veterans, but also those who have served in prior campaigns such as Korea, Vietnam, World War II, and smaller campaigns throughout history. So I am going to take about the next 10 minutes to provide some information about our department. But first, I wanted to be able to share with you some information about our Maryland veterans. Who are they when it comes to statistics and numbers? As Delegate Rogers indicated earlier, Maryland is home to approximately 385,000 veterans. That is just under about 9% of the adult population in the state. We are home to approximately 52,000 women veterans, and I would like to also share that this is the second largest population of women veterans of any state. We are only following Washington, D.C. in terms of our women veteran population. So kudos to all those incredible women who have served over the years. We have just over that in terms of military retirees, about 56,000. Just under 100,000 veterans receiving disability compensation. We have a marked number of active duty service members, as well as Reservist National Guard. I always like to also share that about 130,000 veteran households with children are in the state of Maryland. It's always important to be aware of and be mindful of the fact that we have a huge population of dependents across the state of Maryland in terms of spouses as well as children of active duty service members, Reservist National Guard, as well as veterans. The key here, though, is only about 40% of Maryland veterans are enrolled in the Veterans Health Administration. And this is a challenge that I face every day when I am working to educate veterans across the state on the expanse of services and benefits to which they're entitled. And it's important to note that we as a state agency cannot do it alone. And so therefore, I am so thankful for Delegate Rogers and the various caucuses that are on the event this evening to help us be able to spread the message about the importance of verifying eligibility, and for those who are eligible to please enroll in VHA. So a little bit about the history of our department. We are 20 years strong. Last year, we celebrated our 20th anniversary. Actually, Governor Hogan proclaimed 2019 as the year of the veteran in the state of Maryland. We have an overriding mission of ensuring that our veterans, active duty service members, as well as their families and dependents have access to and are able to secure the benefits to which they are entitled as a result of their military service. We have 5 core programs and approximately 110 staff. About 50% of our staff in the department actually work in our cemetery and memorial program, as I will talk about in a little bit. Our first core program is our service and benefits program. We have accredited veterans benefit specialists all across the state of Maryland who have received training to be accredited by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs to be able to assist and represent service members, veterans, and survivors to the federal VA as they are applying for and looking to ascertain any variety of benefits to which they are entitled. Our veterans benefit specialists are there from the very beginning. They are there to be able to assist with the claims process in terms of the application, collecting the evidence, compiling the evidence, submitting all of that evidence to the federal VA, and tracking that claim until it is adjudicated. They are also there to be able to assist veterans and survivors once that claim comes back, to be able to educate those veterans and survivors as well as dependents on what an adjudicated actually means in terms of you've received a 30% disability rating or a 70% disability rating. You know, what does this mean in terms of not just your monetary benefit, but also your eligibility and access to VA healthcare? We have service offices located statewide. We have forged in the last year an incredible partnership with the MVA. We are expanding into MVA service centers all across the state. We are located currently at the Glen Burnie MVA. We've just opened our office in Hagerstown as well as Bel Air and as well as Salisbury, and we are looking to expand considerably across the state within those MVA service centers to improve our provision of customer service, because we all at some point will go into the MVA, whether it's for a vehicle, a driver's license, a boat license, etc. And we just want to make sure that we are as accessible as we possibly can be to those who have served. In addition, our service and benefits program is a repository for DD-214s. So for those veterans who are released from active duty and indicated that Maryland is their home of record, we will likely have a copy of their DD-214 on file, and within 24 hours, we can have a copy of that DD-214 out in the mail to a Maryland veteran. In in our annual report for 2019, our services and benefits program submitted just shy of 5,000 claims to the VA for claims for disability compensation as well as pension, and we brought in almost $34 million in new or increased benefits to veterans and their families across the state, which is really quite incredible. We also manage Charlotte Hall Veterans Home. It is our state veterans home. It is located in St. Mary's County. We have a total of 454 beds spread between skilled nursing as well as assisted living. Our veterans home is for veterans as well as eligible spouses, and I have provided the contact information for our admissions office. 301-884-8171, extension 409, and all of this information is also available on our website. Thirdly, our cemetery and memorial program. Delegate Rogers indicated earlier that we had the opportunity to participate in a District 30 delegation service project in celebration of Veterans Day at our World War II memorial this past Saturday. I just learned today that we compiled 1,400 pounds of either debris, trash and leaves, and cleaned up the World War II memorial and brought it back to a pristine state. So thank you so much to the delegation for participating in that project. We operate the busiest state veteran cemetery program in the country. We have 5 state veteran cemeteries scattered throughout the state. We also are responsible primarily for 4 veteran memorials, as well as sharing responsibility with Baltimore City for a 5th. They are the World War II Memorial and Gold Star Families Memorial Monument, both located just outside of Annapolis over the Naval Academy Bridge, nestled between both routes of 450. We also manage the Vietnam War Memorial just north of what I always call the old Harbor Hospital in Baltimore City, as well as the Korean War Memorial that is located in Canton. So that kind of brings me to Outreach and Advocacy, which is the program under our department over which I have primary responsibility. Our core mission is to ensure that we are reaching our service members, veterans, and their families, and that we are educating them on any variety of VA benefits to which they are entitled, federal benefits, state benefits, local benefits, nonprofit programs, etc. I have a staff of 2, and that includes myself. We utilize a creative approach to connecting with our service members, veterans, and their families. We utilize multiple mediums in doing that. We try to educate both federal, state, and local governments, as well as community organizations on VA benefits, on the mission of MDVA. Over the course of the last 7 years that I've been with the department, we have tried to get as creative as possible, going so far as staffing tables at the Bass Pro Shop, as well as tables at 5K races. Really, there is nowhere that Denise and I won't go in our attempts to connect with our veterans. Between face-to-face contacts, electronic contacts, social media, etc., between Denise and I, my deputy, we had 1.3 million contacts in fiscal year 20. Because it's important that we know and that we have a full awareness of the fact that there was a study in 2015 that I always think about. It was published by the Institute for Veterans and Military Families out of Syracuse University. They surveyed the largest population ever within the military connected community to ask questions about transition from military civilian life. And what they found was 60% reported their number one challenge during transition was navigating the Department of Veterans Affairs, meaning the United States Department, as well as their VA benefits. So we really, really work hard to drive this number down across the state and to help our veterans and dependents get connected to the services to which they are entitled as a result of their service. Delegate Rogers in my introduction gave a really good overview of the various ways that we are connecting, whether it is through our website, social media, newsletter, media engagement. I also oversee a number of different programs to include the Veteran Services Specialist Program, which is a program that has assigned liaisons within all state agencies, whereby we hold quarterly meetings throughout the year, as well as an annual training to ensure that our state agencies are also trained on the variety of veteran benefits and services that are available across the state. I also oversee the Governor's Customer Service Initiative, as well as help facilitate and host our joint County Veterans Commission meetings. We held a summit this past January, which brought together all of the county veterans commissions, councils, collaboratives, as well as the 4 state veteran connected commissions to ensure that everyone is working together, learning from one another, and practicing best practices as they are connecting with veterans across the state. As you can see, between Denise and I, we also actively participate in a number of different governor's commissions, as well as collaborations, as well as councils. Our 5th core program is our Maryland Veterans Trust Fund. It is a 501c3 whereby we provide grants to veterans and family members experiencing temporary financial difficulties. It is designed to provide assistance one time only, and for more information, individuals can contact Mark Hendricks, who is our trust administrator. I would be remiss if I did not also mention the fact that MDVA serves as co-lead on the Governor's Challenge to prevent suicide among service members, veterans, and their families. We started this initiative back in May. I serve as the co-lead on this, with the lead being the Department of Health, Behavioral Health Administration, Maryland's Commitment to Veterans Director Joy Ashcraft. We have received incredible subject matter expertise. We've had opportunities to be a part of nationwide policy academies, evaluation conferences, in efforts to develop a state-based suicide prevention action plan. This action plan that has been submitted to the U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration will help to inform the work that we will be doing to develop the prevention plan that is required by Senate Bill 521 that was passed last year. And finally, that brings me to my encouragement to all of you, my ask of all of you to please visit our website. It has much, much more information than I could ever go over in a short briefing like I am tonight. Veterans.maryland.gov. I encourage you to sign up for our newsletter, follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Please visit our YouTube channel as well. And finally, this is my contact information, dana.burl@maryland.gov, and my cell, because we are, as was just reiterated this evening in the governor's press conference, on full-time telework. So please, by all means, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. And with that, I will defer back to Delegate Rogers, and thank you very much for the opportunity to brief this evening.
Wow, Dana, thank you so much for that very helpful information. And I really don't understand. Mentioned to Secretary Owens that you need a raise.
I need a raise
for all that great work that you guys are doing in terms of outreach. That's right. So
how about a trip to the Bahamas?
I'll mention that to him tomorrow at Crownsville when I see him. So our next panelist this evening is Miss Gloria Dent. Gloria is the Director of the Veterans Employment and Initiatives for the U.S. Ability One Commission. Currently, she's responsible for initiatives for the U.S. Ability One Commission, creating an opportunity for really wounded, ill, and recovering veterans using the federal procurement process. She spent over 27 years on active duty, which included 7 deployments in support of global operations while serving in the U.S. Army. She culminated her military career as a commander. I might add, she was the first African-American female to be promoted to the highest enlisted rank in her career field. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gloria.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Delegate Rogers, for not only hosting this event, but I didn't know if I should come after Dana Burl. So she's got such great presentation. So I'll try to do my best to do it to come after her. But what I want to talk to you this afternoon about something that's near and dear to a lot of the veterans' heart, especially now that's going on. The U.S. Ability One program has a long-standing history of working with veterans as well as working with veterans with disabilities. But one of the things that we're moving toward is a infamous, long-standing that occurred back in 2010. And the thing that came out of that was called the Rule of Two. And under the Rule of Two, it requires VA to consider veterans first. And in doing so, the VA created a program that's called the Veterans First Verification Program. And when they did that, they took a look at all the service-disabled veterans as well as the veteran-owned small business. And in that process, a lot of churn occurred from 2010 to 2020. Well, I'm happy to report in 2020, in August, that the Veteran First Verification Program has been up and running. It went from $750 million over to $19 billion in federal procurement dollars. And what does that mean to our veterans? That really means that as a service-disabled veteran and a veteran-owned small business, that you can make a large impact in trying to become a business entrepreneur. The Ability One has started its entrepreneurial program to where we are working with various veteran-owned small businesses and minority-owned minority business entities with our nonprofit organizations to be able to participate and use that as a mentor protege program. The advantage to that is that we're able to increase the employment opportunities for those wounded, ill, and recovering veterans that you heard about in my bio. Now, what does it mean to be a service disabled or veteran-owned small business? It means that one, you have to go after your VA claim. So, working with some people like Dana, and you'll hear next from Renee about how do you actually go after your benefits. Well, in order for us to do that, you have to be verified. And the first step is for you to become a service disabled veteran. That's through your VA. Upon completion of the application for to become a veteran, a service disabled veteran, the veteran needs to make sure that they own 51% of the business. Now that continues to be a contentious subject because there's a lot of pass-through process, and over the last couple of years, we've made leaps and bounds on making sure that there's a process in place so the service disabled veteran can comply. But there are many things that we won't get into tonight because it's more of an introductory, but you're more than welcome to reach out to us as well as speak to some of our colleagues at the Small Business Association. One of the greatest things that I can tell you to do is that you talk about ownership. It is working with your state, local, and county minority veterans, minority business entities, as well as your small business and veterans-owned business programs. Once you start the process for your veterans-owned small business, you're going to go through SAMS like everyone else. The advantage of going through SAMS is that you are able to create a certification process with the VA and with most other entities. If you do go through SAMS and if you go through the verification process, you can get direct set-asides. Over the last year, we've given, the small business has given out over $21 million in federal procurement dollars for underutilized small business. This advantage for veterans is significant. The last thing that you want to take a look at is making sure that as you are determining your product or your service, that is something that is a need for the government. This year alone, with the advances of COVID was able to take businesses that have never been doing traditional business in the day-to-day management and move that into a business that became well known as not only a policy but also a service to our community. In the next couple of weeks, as you're getting ready to prepare for us transitioning away from COVID, the new act that's called the Delivery Service Act is set aside, and in doing so, they've set over $500 million set aside for service disabled and veteran-owned small business. There's no reason why veterans within the state of Maryland cannot take advantage of that. I've agreed to work with Dana from the Maryland Department of Veteran Affairs over the next couple of months so that we can establish a website that you can go to and get the information that you need on how to do business with the government. The Maryland Minority Business Entity is a great place for you to start if you're focusing on the local state governments. But if you are interested in doing business with the federal government, then you need to make sure that you have your certifications and your qualifications in order for you to be able to do business in the Veterans First Priority Contracting. And again, by doing so, that means that the VA must consider the Rule of Two. And the Rule of Two means simply that before they can award any business contract, then they must consider if there's a service disabled or veteran-owned small business or veteran-owned small business entity that cannot perform the product or services. The advantage that they presents to you is it offers you the highest opportunity for you to receive procurement without having it with an independent judgment. If you have any other questions, then you can go to the VA website and refer to what is called the Veteran First Program. And last but not least, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Delegate Rogers. We're able to assist you in all means that we can. If you do not have the necessary tools that you need in order for you to get your benefits, then I suggest strongly that you contact your local veteran center and become certified as a service disabled veteran. Finally, I leave with these parting words. We can do more if you want us to do it, but we can do less unless you help us with it. And we are doing less not because we don't want to do more. We're doing less because you're not asking. So if you ask, then you'll receive. Thank you.
Thank you. Gloria, for those words regarding business opportunities and how folks can go about getting their certifications. And I, Gloria, I helps veterans through all phases of the application process, as well as helping them set up nonprofit status for themselves. So, I commend you on your efforts that you're doing for veterans in the community. Our next panelist this evening is Renee Brooks, Esquire, combat veteran and attorney at the Board of Veterans Appeals. Following 8 years in the United States Air Force, to include 3 deployments to the Middle East, Renee attended the Thurgood Marshall School of Law and she graduated with her law degree in 2014. Shortly thereafter, she began a career as an attorney at the Department of Veteran Affairs Board of Veterans Appeals, where she conducts extensive research in order to write high quality appellate decisions. Renee is contributing to this panel in her personal capacity, and her goal is to educate veterans on information that is available to the public. The views expressed are her own and do not represent the views of the Veterans Administration or the United States government. Renee, it's all yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Thanks, Ms. Den and Ms. Burrow, for your information as well. And I want to get right into my presentation, which is focused on VA disability. And as stated, my disclaimer is that the information provided does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, all information, content, and materials presented are for general information purposes only. So, when I first separated from the military in 2010, and I would interact with other veterans, they would always ask me if I had a service connection. And when I would ask them what a service connection was, they really couldn't give me an answer. So, of course, that made me do some research on it and finally try to understand what these different things mean in terms of my service and disability. So, a service connection describes an injury or disease resulting in a disability linked to service in the military. And veterans often need a service connection in order to obtain monetary benefits or seek health care from the VA. And there are 5 methods that are used to establish service connection. Direct service connection, which I'm going to focus on today. And you also have secondary service connection through aggravation of a pre-existing condition. You have presumptive service connection, and you also have service connection for injuries caused by VA healthcare. As far as direct service connection, you have to show 3 elements. And the first element is a current disability. The second element is an in-service injury, illness, or incident. And the third element is a medical link nexus between the current disability and the in-service event, injury, or illness. And this is typically the hardest one to show. And remember, you have to have all 3 in order to obtain service connection. So what is element 1? Current disability. And the easiest way to show proof of a current disability is through a diagnosis that's typically in your medical records. However, as of, I believe, June 2018, a new law has been recognized by the court, the federal courts, and it states that veterans may be eligible for service connection even without a current diagnosis. For example, if pain causes functional impairment, it may therefore qualify as a disability. So an example of that would be if you have back pain, but you don't have a diagnosis like arthritis of the back, but you have back pain. So if that back pain causes functional impairment, it may therefore qualify as a disability. So I know that veterans have been denied in the past because they didn't have a current diagnosis. However, if they can show that their pain causes functional impairment, it may therefore qualify as a disability. So veterans, please check on that. So element 2 is the in-service event, illness, or injury. So an illness, injury, or event that arose during active duty military service can be eligible for a disability rating. Now, I know in service, when you're doing all the running and when you're doing all the lifting, you don't always report it to the medical facility. You don't always get a profile, but sometimes you do complain about it to like your buddies or your significant others, your spouse, your friends. You may complain about it to them so they can actually help corroborate any type of injury that you had in service. So I recommend supplementing your claim with a lay statement or your own lay statement and a statement from a buddy. And for the people who are in service right now, they should be keeping a journal. Like if you're still in service, keep a journal because you're not going to be able to remember everything. But disabilities that arose due to a veteran's own willful misconduct do not qualify for VA benefits. And here's element 3, which I said is the toughest one sometimes, and it's a nexus, which is a medical link between the current disability and the in-service event, illness, or injury, the two things we just discussed. So this is the medical link. And the best way to establish a nexus is through with medical evidence. And you need an opinion from a medical professional affirming that they believe your condition is, at least as likely as not, caused by your military service. That's the key language. And the opinion must reflect knowledge of the veteran's medical history and be supported by adequate rationale. So if a veteran is obtaining an opinion from his or her private doctor, they could actually show the doctor their military records and medical history so that doctor can write a strong opinion with rationale to support that opinion. So with regards to Maryland veterans, I looked up the number and I looked at Miss Dana's presentation, and she said that about 385,000 veterans are currently in Maryland. And also she talked about, well, on her chart, it also said 79,800 veterans are currently receiving compensation from VA. And I did the calculation, and that is about 20%. So 20% of Maryland veterans are receiving compensation for their disability benefits. Just wanted to put that number out there because I think it's low. So women veterans demographics. I also wanted to touch on this because the numbers are alarming when I did my research with this. So in 2015, over 400,000 women veterans received compensation from VA for a service-connected disability. And I found this on the Department of Veteran Affairs website, and it's the 2015 Women Veterans Report. So as of 2017, there are over 2 million women veterans in the US, and women are the fastest growing group in the veteran population. And as of 2019, there are over 519,000 women veterans receiving compensation for VA for service connection disability. So I asked myself, where are the other remaining 1.5 women veterans? Since we have over 2 million, I see that only about 25% of them are currently receiving compensation for disability. And here are the most common disabilities among women veterans. And this was as of 2015, because this is the last Women Veterans Report. So I base a lot of things off of this report. So PTSD was a top one, and that's post-traumatic stress disorder. And it accounted for 12% of all service-connected disability among women veterans. And major depressive disorder also accounted for 26,500 women veterans. Now, for veterans who are seeking service connection for multiple mental health disorders, they'll just all be combined. You're not going to get a separate rating for your multiple mental health disorders. They're going to all be rated under the same code, basically. And migraine headaches were one of the top disabilities, and back pain was one. And this one is the one that kind of blew me away. because the complete removal of the uterus and ovaries accounted for a total of 23,000 women veterans in 2015, but it was broken down with complete removal of the ovaries and uterus, and 10,500 for the same procedure, except they removed more of the woman's gynecological part. So I wanted to hone in on that a little bit more, because as of the 2019 annual benefits reports, the number has gone up. And it's now 24,380 women veterans had complete removal of their ovaries, and 17,938 had the complete removal of their ovaries and uterus. And so I wanted to get to the total number of women with gynecological disabilities are over 141,000. And gynecological disabilities include breast disorders along with the reproductive system includes the breast disorders. And so what does that mean? Based on my calculations, nearly 30% of all women veterans who have a service-connected disability suffer from a gynecological disability. So there are several ways that these disabilities can result from your military service. And it could be from a traumatic event in service. It can also be from, it doesn't have to be from like anything specific, because based on my research, women had some type of issue in service, and it was no specific event, but they had some type of gynecological issue in service, and it just eventually sometimes led to a hysterectomy later in life. And Gulf War veterans, those are women veterans or veterans who served in the Persian Gulf War since 1990. Like, that's still going on according to VA. So that's service in Saudi Arabia, that's service in Kuwait, it's service in the Middle East, basically. And when it comes to service in the Middle East or the Gulf War, the law will presume that since that condition cannot be explained, it has something to do with your exposure in the Persian Gulf War. So if a woman veteran has unexplained gynecological symptoms with no known diagnosis, and they also had service in the Persian Gulf War, the VA will presume that their service in the Persian Gulf War resulted in their gynecological condition. So there's no need for like a medical nexus in an instance like that. It would be presumptively related to your service. Yes. So ultimately, if a gynecological condition began in service, service connection may be warranted. And so, like when women get service connected for a gynecological condition, they can actually receive in vitro fertilization benefits from the VA. And this is new. And in vitro fertilization is really expensive. So for the VA to provide this for women who have that service connection for a gynecological condition, I think this is a great thing. And so it's certain criteria that has to be met, and any women veterans can share this information. The number is 1-855-VA-WOMEN. Now, here's something that I like to do at the end. How does this apply to my case? I came up with some scenarios, and these are real life scenarios based on some cases that I found online. All this information is available online. Cases. So, scenario 1. The veteran served on active duty from April 2002 to April 2010 to include service in Kuwait and Afghanistan. She complained about abdominal cramps and heavy bleeding throughout her military service. She had one abnormal pap smear, but no ultrasound was ever conducted. She was diagnosed with fibroids in 2015 and underwent a myomectomy in 2016. As you can see, the diagnosis came 5 years after her service, and so did the surgeries. That was 6 years after service. However, she submitted her claim in April 2002, and the VA examiner concluded that her currently diagnosed fibroids were at least as likely as not incurred in or caused by her cramps during service. As rationale, the examiner explained that the veteran complained about cramps and heavy bleeding during service, and symptoms of fibroids includes heavy bleeding and cramps. Service connection warranted? Yes, because the veteran's current disability, element 1, was due to in-service complaints, element 2, and the VA opinion, element 3, was based on the veteran's medical history, and there was adequate rationale to support the conclusion. Scenario 2, the veteran had active duty service from July 1993 to September 1997. Her service treatment records, that's her medical records in service, show that the veteran was treated for irregular bleeding, severe cramping in cycles, and frequent urination while in service. However, her records were silent for a diagnosis for fibroids. She was diagnosed with fibroids in 1997. The veteran's hysterectomy occurred in 2005, which was 8 years after her separation from service. The examiner concluded that it was less likely than not that the veteran's disability was related to or occurred in service. In this case, the VA examiner provided a negative opinion, meaning denied. However, the veteran's symptoms during service, her diagnosis very soon after her separation from service, and her overall medical history, specifically her reported symptoms in service, helped her meet the threshold for service connection. Therefore, service connection was granted. She was given the benefit of the doubt, and it was resolved in her favor, and service connection for residuals of her hysterectomy was warranted. Now, scenario 3, the veteran served on active duty from January 1987 to January 2009. While in service, she reported irregular periods and an ovarian cyst was diagnosed in August 1997. However, such issue was noted as resolved in her military records. After retiring from service, a cyst was seen on her left ovary, same ovary, in June 2018, and she filed a claim. The veteran was afforded a VA gynecological exam in March 2019. The examiner opined that the veteran's ovarian cyst was at least as likely as not incurred in service. In support of that opinion, the examiner noted that the veteran had no issues with ovarian cysts prior to service, and that the veteran's service treatment records documented the onset of symptoms during service, and she continued to suffer from irregular bleeding. Service connection warranted? Yes. Her current disability was due to in-service complaints, and a VA nexus opinion was based on the veteran's medical history, and there was adequate rationale to support that conclusion. So what I'm trying to show you is element 1 was met, current disability. Element 2 was met, in-service complaints, and element 3 was met. And that's how she was able to get this granted. So I'm just trying to show you how the law applies to a set of facts. And scenario 4 was that the veteran claimed that her breast cancer was caused by her exposure to chemicals while serving in Iraq from January 1991 to May 1991. Her DD-214 documented her service in Southwest Asia during the Persian Gulf War. Therefore, she was presumed to have been exposed to environmental hazards because burn pits and all the things that veterans are exposed to while on these deployments. So they just presumed that she was exposed to certain chemicals. So the veteran submitted a private opinion from her treating oncologist, who concluded that it was at least as likely as not that the veteran's breast cancer and residuals were caused by her exposure to chemical agents in Iraq. The oncologist also provided sufficient rationale for the conclusion. So service connection was warranted because the veteran had a current disability, and her current disability was due to her in-service exposure to chemicals, and she had a private opinion from the oncologist, and it was based on her medical history, and adequate rationale supported the conclusion. Therefore, she was granted service connection for the residuals of her breast cancer. Now, here are some, it's a lot of them, but I didn't put all of them on here, but here are some common mistakes that veterans make when filing for benefits. And I mean, waiting too long to file a claim, but that doesn't mean it'll always be denied. It's just that this is one of the common mistakes. Now, for people who are in the military right now, if you have about 180 days left, between 180 and 90 days left in your military service, you can actually file a pre-discharge claim before you even get out of the military. I didn't know that, but you can. So sometimes filling out forms incorrectly. This is really happening now because the Appeals Modernization Act went into effect last year. So if a claim was recently denied, you can't file it electronically. If it was denied like a year or two ago and you're trying to reopen it, you can't file it electronically anymore. You got to file it on a supplemental claim now on a certain form. So this is very important. And not continuing the appeal after receiving a denial from the VA. Not filing for secondary conditions. For example, if you have a back condition and you develop a condition in your legs, like radiculopathy or some other type of neurological condition in your legs, that can be secondary to your back. And failing to obtain a medical opinion. Just in case, like if you get a negative opinion from the VA, you can get your own opinion from a private examiner. So that's important too. So that's all I have. Any questions? Save them for the end.
Wow, Renee.
I'll do this alone. As Ms. Dana stated, the Department of Maryland Veteran Affairs, they have all these different people to help you. I believe she said the veteran specialist. And you have VSOs, and you also have other pro bono organizations that can assist you. Thank you.
Renee, thank you for that very enlightening information. I know a lot of times when I think of the various types of VA claims and with respect to disability, I tend to think of a lot of the musculoskeletal, knees, back, shoulders, but not some of the stuff that you raise that are peculiar to our women veterans, which is often, goes unnoticed. So thank you so much for that presentation. Extremely enlightening to me. So with that, we'll go to our final panelist, who is Mr. Brian Smith, Captain, United States Navy, retired. Brian is a retired Navy officer and service-connected combat veteran. Over the past 3 years, Brian has advocated in the Maryland General Assembly in support of a variety of veterans initiatives, particularly on mental health and suicide prevention issues. Brian also publishes a Free State Veterans blog, as well as maintains a variety of social media accounts focusing on Maryland service members, veterans, and their families. I can personally speak to Brian Smith's efforts because he testified on behalf of a number of my bills this past session. So, Brian, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I'm going to give it a shot sharing my screen here. And it looks like it might just let me do that. So let me get back to the beginning. It didn't pick up where I wanted it to, but you can't have everything. So I'm going to give you a quick, and I don't think it'll be more than 10 minutes or so, overview of some of the veterans legislative accomplishments from our recent 2020 session. Hopefully this will be reasonably meaningful, and I'll make it quick. As Mike said, retired Navy guy, disabled combat vet, serve on the board of the wonderful Maryland Therapeutic Riding out in Anne Arundel County. And we'd love to have Dana and George Owings come back soon and give us one of those nice service animal program grants, because we sure do deserve it. I've been a veterans advocate in the General Assembly for 3 years, 2 years with AARP Maryland, and last year with the Maryland Military Coalition. And the big thing I noticed is that no matter how hard you work and how much time you devote to communications, you can always spend more time on communications. So I started Free State Veterans with the goal of improving dialogue amongst veterans in Maryland, reaching out to an audience much wider than just veterans and their families, service members and their families, but to anyone that has an affinity for veterans issues. Because at the end of the day, if I want you to pass a bill, I don't care if my supporter is a veteran or not, I care that they support the bill. So Facebook alone, we kicked off February of this year, and we've grown to the point that we reach 500,000 people each month. Over the course of our existence, we've exceeded 5 million people, and we've actually engaged with about 1.5 million people. Now, obviously, a lot of those are the same people, but then obviously a lot of those are not the same people. So we are attempting to enhance the existing dialogue and do a better job of sharing the information that's out there, because I hate it when no matter how hard you work at it, somebody can say, well, I never knew that. Oh, I never knew I was entitled to that. So you can never over communicate. So a quick review of the things that we did. And a big thanks to Dana, George Owings, and our wonderful Maryland General Assembly, because you've been very proactive in supporting bills, and we actually had a very good year in spite of the COVID challenges. So a couple categories of bills that I like to talk about. State income tax changes, which are very heavy lifts, not much to report on that front. County level real property tax changes. Mandatory changes are very heavy lifts, hard to do, but we did get some optional authority type wins. Doing things for active duty service members and their families. We have a couple good news stories there, as well as the categories of everything else. So let's kick it off with our wonderful Veterans Home. Mike Rogers championed a bill to ensure that the wording of the eligibility language would include any member of the 8 uniformed services, because just because it says veteran doesn't mean you served in the military. It means you served in one of the uniformed services, which of course is the includes the U.S. Public Health Service and the commissioned officers of the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. So a good win ensured that our legislation reflects reality. Another great one, that was an administration bill from the Department of Transportation exempting active duty deployed service members from mandatory vehicle emissions inspections. Delegate Carey, Senator Simon Ayer got reauthorization for issuing complimentary and discounted hunting and fishing licenses to certain military personnel, POWs, Purple Heart recipients, and disabled veterans. It's a well-used, much-needed program. Another great administration bill, and this kind of falls into the doing the things for the service members, veterans, and the spouses. There's a big push from the national level at the Department of Defense State Liaison Office to make spouse and service member employability more streamlined as they shift from state to state. So we had another win this year to streamline the ability, particularly of military spouses, to get a license received out of state back into action in state to help them regain employment. Because that's one of the disadvantages of military services, that sometimes with your transfers, your spouse loses a period of employability waiting to become relicensed for a certain skill set in the new state of residency. Another great administration bill, expanding TA for Maryland National Guard from 50 to 100%, naturally contingent on the appropriation being there to support it. Nonetheless, a good win. Another one of the Department of Defense State Liaison initiatives that especially Delegate Valentino Smith has been wonderful about championing is streamlining the process for military dependent children to enroll in schools, and ensuring that when they have orders to the state, that they don't have to show up to the state to get enrolled in school, because sometimes by the time they do, classes are no longer available. They have trouble getting the programs they want to do. This is a very low cost bill that really is more about the authorities, and that was a big win to be able to get that one through. Another one, Delegate Valentino Smith, again, a frequent flyer on these type of issues, as well as Senator Elfreth, on ensuring that if a military member in the state, his spouse or dependent children apply for college in the state, and then the military member transfers, that they don't lose that in-state entitlement for in-state tuition, which previously they did. So again, another truth told, low cost bill. It doesn't affect a lot of people, but the people that it does affect, it can really hurt. So it was a great low cost win to help service members and their families. The amazing Pat Young, who is a Veterans Bill generator, getting reauthorization for the Veterans of Afghanistan and Iraq Conflict Scholarship, which does provide some money to help our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans with advanced education. Another great Pat Young bill, vehicle registration. So when a guy like me gets my special plates for veterans, my Bronze Star plates, I can make a donation to support the very deserving and exceptional Maryland Veterans Trust Fund. We can never do enough to allow people the ability to more easily make donations to this wonderful fund. And I was really thrilled to see that this bill went through. Probably one of the ones that excites me the most, the Healing, Hunting, and Fishing Fund. This was a 2-year effort. Sort of didn't get there in 19. We did get there in 20. But what it does, it lets the Department of Natural Resources, which sells a tremendous number of licenses online. In fact, the Department of Natural Resources breaks in just shy of 18 million bucks a year on recreational licenses. They sell quite a number of them online. This really does nothing more than allow these wonderful people that buy these licenses to make a voluntary monetary donation to the Healing, Hunting, and Fishing Fund. It'll be administered by the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and it will provide grants to nonprofits that do a variety of wonderful activities supporting, as you see here, Gold Star families, disabled vets, other disabled members of the armed forces, as well as permanently disabled persons that use a wheelchair. The great thing about it is it really expands it beyond just hunting and fishing licenses. It can support through grants nonprofits that provide this amazing variety of opportunities to this group of people. The ones that I particularly like, workforce training for green jobs, I thought was pretty good. Therapeutic outdoor activities, a wide variety. I really look forward to seeing this being established and Chesapeake Bay Trust being able to make the grants, because this is potentially a large dollar type of thing. I mean, if you take a small percentage of $18 million in licenses, that can easily be hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that are available for grants. So pretty exciting. Again, a big shout out to Senator Ellis and Delegate Pat Young on the Veterans Education Protection Act, which ensures that for-profit schools must score GI Bill benefits as a federal source of funding. This was one of the few contested bills I've ever seen in the Maryland General Assembly as I've been there testifying for veterans type of issues. Some of the for-profits were against it, though they admitted in testimony that it actually wouldn't have affected them based on their current funding situations. But we're the first state in the nation to do it. Oregon tried, they failed this year. We tried and passed. It continues to be a hot issue at the federal level, but for decades, there's been no federal solution. So a big win for Maryland to truly be the first state in the nation to do this. Property taxes, again, I said it's a heavy lift. The way it is right now, if you're 100% permanently and totally disabled veteran, you will not pay real property taxes on your primary residence in the state of Maryland. That's a good deal. Counties have in the past had the option that if you were a military retiree upon reaching the age of 65 years, they could give you up to a 5-year, 20% break on your real property taxes. And that's gone through a few iterations to make sure the spouse was covered, to make sure the spouse, if she hadn't reached 65 years of age, could be eligible if he or she reached 65 years of age. But I think the exciting thing about this, and again, county optional, to my knowledge, only 2 counties do it. Montgomery County, I believe, does the 5-year 20% for the military retirees. I believe Arundel, and Mike can smack me if I'm wrong, I believe does 10% for maybe 2 or 3 years. But by and large, a lot of other counties don't do this. However, one of the big wins that I think this year was expanding this authority to include honorably discharged veterans with a service-connected disability, regardless of age. And it would also apply to a surviving spouse. Now, the issue about this, the county has to decide to do it. They can also establish the criteria regarding a service-connected disability. I take that to mean the percentage that would be involved. So they could set a threshold at 50, 70, 80, 90, something of that nature. But again, it's county optional, but it at least it gives the county an option, and it makes it incumbent on our veteran service organizations to really become more activist at the county level and start pushing their counties to do the things of this nature. Senator Salling and Delegate Crosby, sort of a bipartisan across the street, across the aisle, two Army veterans doing great things, pushed through another county optional real property tax credit. It's a partial sliding scale county option that impacts service disabled veterans with ratings between 50 and 99%. Of course, you're 100%, you already get it. Some of the provisions, it caps, it's based on an AGI cap of 100,000. It's 25% tax if the vet's rated between 50 and 74, a 50% tax if the veteran's rated 75 to 99. Again, brand new, nobody's doing it, but again, engaging at the county level and working with county delegations and county executives, it's incumbent on the veterans to really get those chains of communication going, because these are potentially big items. And frankly, if a county wants to make itself known as veterans friendly, there's really no better way to do than take these issues on and do that, because veterans populations track things like community-based outpatient clinics from Department of Veterans Affairs. They look at where vets live to make resourcing decisions, and if you have more vets, you get more benefits. And that is it for me. So I will stop talking and start listening.
All right, Brian, thank you for the incredible wealth of knowledge you share with to legislate. At this point, we have a couple questions, so I'm gonna turn to Delegate Krim, who I know had a question for I think the Department of Veteran Affairs.
Okay. Yes, my question is for Dana. So Dana, last year we heard about a second veterans home that was in the planning stages. So where are we on that?
Sure, that's a really excellent question, a question that's on the minds of a lot of folks across the state. And currently—
Dana, you want me to take that?
Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, Delegate, because of the nature of your question and all of the rumors that can get out, let me just say that we have located land in Sykesville, and it's about 140 acres. It will satisfy the VA's requirement. The good news is that it's owned by the state, so it's a transfer between two agencies. Us being the recipient, of course, of the land, and Department of Corrections and prison system. So it's located in an area that is conducive to our needs. The extra, you heard Dana talk about the cemetery program, the extra land, because we will not need 140 acres anywhere near it to put this home on, can be set aside for yet another cemetery, which we were going to need in the future. We, as she explained to you, we are now in our largest expansion ever in a single grant from the National Cemetery Administration. And that is coming to fruition as we continue to expand our cemeteries. So to answer your question directly, we're very excited about it. In fact, the director of the home in Charlotte Hall is Sharon Murphy, and she has been working from home on some documents that are very critical at this juncture. The good news, the further good news is that the land is already owned by the state. What we need basically now is just a topo. It's already been surveyed once, so it's all kind of in-house right now. But I'm glad you did ask that question because it's something that I have been striving for 16 years, quite honestly, during my first term here when I was a delegate, serving as the chairman of the supplemental delegation and being down at the home all the time. Had relatives there, as a matter of fact, and returning now to this position a second time, it's something that I really would love to see happen before I go. So anyway, I hope that helps answer some of your questions.
It helped. It answered it very well. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Secretary. I want to acknowledge Delegate Patterson. I know she had some comments with respect to some proposed legislation.
Thank you very much, Delegate Rogers. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I appreciate the fact that you've included the concerns and also the challenges of women veterans. This will be our fourth year hosting a forum so that they will come together and share what it is that are challenges to them, as well as being the uniqueness of women veterans. So last year we sponsored from the Women's Caucus, it was Delegate Kittleman and myself, a bill to look at having a women's center at one of the colleges. And we had a discussion with Secretary Owens and many others. And so we will reintroduce this bill. It's really critical that we look at having these resources and centers that are clearly designed and designated for women veterans. And so that bill will be coming in the 2021 session.
Hey, thank you for that, Delegate Patterson. So I have a question here from, not sure if Dana or Brene would like to take a stab at this. Is it true once you receive the VA on that if you increase the disability that could either decrease or
Delegate Rogers, you froze, so I was not able to hear the entire question.
Oh, sure. So the question is it true that once you receive a decision from the VA on a claim, that if you refile a claim to increase the disability percentage, that the VA could either decrease or increase your disability percentage?
So it is possible that when you receive a particular rating, whether it's 30%, 40%, 50%, what have you, and you file for an increase, yes, the VA could make a decision to increase it as well. They will evaluate you at that time to determine the degree of the disability, to determine the most appropriate rating. And I'll defer to Brene if she wants to speak as well.
Hello, yeah, that's true. They can decrease it, but it depends on how long you've been rated at that particular rating. Like if you've been rated for I think it's 15 years at 10% for 15 years, they're not going to go under that 10%. It all depends. It all depends on how long you've been at that particular rating.
So Delegate Rogers, this is Ornette. So I will put a link in the chat box that whomever that asked the question, the website that talks about how long the rating must be before they can reconsider it, and then give them some pointers on who they need to contact in the event that they have a rating that they want to have reevaluated.
Gloria, that would be very helpful if you could also post that on Facebook as well, because that's where the question came from, not from the Zoom portion.
Sure,
So just at both places.
sure.
And
Thank
just to follow up as
All right.
well, just to follow up as well to that question, our service officers with the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs on a regular basis assist veterans with disability rating increases. So before a veteran were to file their own paperwork to request an increase, I would strongly, strongly encourage them to speak with a benefits specialist, if not with our department, with another VSO, such as the DAV or you know, any other VSO that's accredited by the federal VA.
So thank you, Dana. And while we have you, request for you, and that's if you could put your slide that outlines what the various programs offer. If you could put that up.
Of course.
Wanting to see the list of programs that buy.
It's disabled, so if it can just be enabled for me to do so, I can.
As part of your outreach effort. Okay, Nicole is shaking her head. Yes, you're enabled now.
Oh, wrong one. So I'm not sure if, so we manage 5 core programs that I talked about during my briefing, and they're listed there. We have a service and benefits program, Charlotte Hall Veterans Home, cemeteries, outreach, and the Veterans Trust. I'm not sure if the question was pertaining to MDVA or outreach and advocacy. So I can.
Well, and certainly what I could do, Dana, is I could forward your slides to the person that asked the question. So.
Sure, definitely. And this just gives a good overview of the outreach and advocacy program and the various governors, commissions, and collaborations, as well as councils that my deputy and I sit on as well.
All right, thank you so much for that, Dana. And at this point, I want to turn to T. Wilson to give him an opportunity to talk about some legislation that he's got proposed for this upcoming session that I know that I'm going to support.
Well, first of all, Mike, thank you very much again, because we're putting this in together. This is a bill I've been putting in for the last 7 years. Mike grabbed it last year. It almost made it through. It took about 5 years to get out of the House. And we're working it through the Senate. I think this would be a good year for us. So myself and Mike are going to be putting in the Veterans Income Tax Checkoff Bill, which basically allows individuals to check a box and donate to DAV. It's shocking how many years I've been fighting to get this through. And I really appreciate that, hopefully that this will be the year, because we want to get some of this, there are plenty of people that want to donate. And again, I'm a little bit more pragmatic or pessimist. Some would say it's frustrating when you have, environmental groups and all that feel that somehow we're posed to take their money away, or agriculture, things of that nature. So this year, we're definitely going to put that in for the DAV. We might even put the Veterans Plate bill, because we have an ag, and I think we have 2 Chesapeake and ag license plates, and I'd like to be able to again raise more money for our veterans in DAV. So we might be putting the veterans license plate bill again, and Mike and I'll talk about that. And lastly, I'll say this, guys, I'm actually going through this reevaluation process. This is great for me. I wish I'd have known that Maryland, you could help me through it, because I've been, getting interviewed for the last probably 3 or 4 months now. I haven't done it since '97 because it was such a horrifyingly bad experience. So it's good to know that, we're actually doing something so our veterans can have it a little easier. Because the first time I went through, they treated me like I was trying to steal something back in '98. So it's actually good to know that people are looking out for us. And the young attorney, Brooks, I'm an attorney too, got out of the military, is enlisted, and came out. So I really appreciate all you're doing. I don't do the Lord's work. I'm a defense attorney, but I will say that I really appreciate that. Hopefully you can reach out to me. We can get you up here in Annapolis when this COVID stuff is over with, because I really enjoy your energy, Ms. Burrow, always. So thank you guys very much. But Ms. Brooks, I definitely would like to talk to you about my legal rights and also that of some of my constituents. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for those comments, CT, and Bill, you put in. I'll support. You know, you put it in. I swear by. So we've got to ask a question before we go to wrap up, and this is for Miss. And this question pertains to going through the certification process to be recognized as an service disabled veteran owned service business. Do you suggest going through the AAA for assistance?
So I did not, I'm sorry, I did not, I just heard the AA for assistance portion.
Sure. So the question is, as far as going to certification process, and it's certification process, not a certification process, but do you suggest going through the EA, Small Business Administration, for assistance?
Yes, so if you are looking to go through a verification process or a certification process, the two processes now are one of the same.
So, Gloria, did you hear the question? Okay.
If you start with the Small Business Administration, then I recommend that you continue with the Small Business Administration. However, if you go through the vet first process, if you go through the VA through the vet preference process, that would be the most logical route, in my opinion, because that you have advocates that are there for you that will help you on a regular basis, and they'll feed your questions through a system that will get you direct feedback electronically. So you're not sitting on the phone like you would with SBA trying to get your information through back and forth. With the advocacy that's at the Veterans Administration, you have a direct point of contact as well. So my recommendation would be to start with, if you're going to get a veteran certification, is to start with the VA. However, you're not required because they are one of the same.
All right, Gloria, thank you for that answer. So we've got about 4 minutes left. So I'm going to go and wrap things up. If there are other questions, certainly feel free to email them to me, mike.rogers@house.state@us.mil, and I will certainly farm out those questions to the appropriate subject matter expert. So as we conclude tonight's Veteran Symposium, many people ask, how can I help veterans? And you can certainly offer support on an individual basis. But I submit to folks on the call, and there have been over 500 people on the call tonight, that most places in our state have an American Legion, a Veterans of Foreign Wars post, some other veteran service organization like the Disabled American Veterans, MOA, which is the Military Officers Association of America, which is an advocacy and support organization. They all can help you with your outreach efforts on behalf of veterans. They sort of serve as force multipliers. So I would encourage you to get one of your local veteran service organizations or military service organizations and allow them to help you with whatever it is you do for veterans. So with that, I'd like to thank our wonderful panelists this evening. I'd also thank our caucus chairs, the different caucuses of the Maryland General Assembly, the Veterans Caucus, the Women's Caucus, and the Black Caucus for supporting this event this evening. I also want to offer a special thanks to my county executive, Stuart Pittman, and the Anne Arundel County Veterans Commission and Military Veterans Liaison, former County Councilman Pete Smith, who made sure that we had the links to television tonight, as well as our Facebook live stream. So really appreciate the support from County Executive Pittman and his administration. And finally, but most importantly, I have to thank the Executive Director for the Black Caucus, and I know she's not on the call, Ms. Stephanie Hall, and my Chief of Staff, Mr. Cole Butler, whose efforts are behind the scenes made the symposium possible. So thank everyone for joining us. Have a good evening and have a great Veterans Day tomorrow.